Good evening, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. We'll get everybody else coming in, but in the meantime, we might as well get started singing. I am no guitarist, so there's no guitar. Our piano player is off for the month, so I need all your help to go a cappella. Okay? Whatever we do. All right, we'll start with what Cantor usually starts off with, which is Hine Matov. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, 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 shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, hine matov. Yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Hine matov, hine matov. La 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 la. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, hine matov. Yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Hine matov, hine matov. Yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Welcome. I think almost everybody is in. I'm Rabbi Sharf, in case there are people here expecting one of the real rabbis of CBI. I am a member of CBI, and here, as our rabbis are out of town, I want to welcome not only all of you who are here, and a nice group of people are here tonight, didn't know with all the heat how many we'd get, and also those who are watching on Zoom, or on Facebook, or on YouTube, or wherever else you might be watching. Okay, so welcome everyone. We'll begin in our book on page 138, which is Lecha Dodi. And as I mentioned to the people here, our pianist Jackie is off for the month, and so as nobody else is here to do any music, I'll need all of your help to get things going and with all of us singing. But we'll do verses 1, 2, then 5, and then of course rising for verse 9 and facing the door to welcome Shabbat. It's page 138, and if you're in the small book, it's on page 20. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamo v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ol tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor habracha merosh mikedem nisucha sof maaseh b'machshava techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5. He told Adi, Kiva oreku mi uri, shir daberi, kavod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. And facing the rear, Bo'i v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha uv'tzahala, toch emunei am segula, Bo'i chala, Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Please be seated. We continue our service on page 144 with the Chetzi Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'alma divarach yirute, v'amlich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Bagala, uvizman kari v'imadu. Amen. Yeshmei Rabba mevorach, le'ala malol me'almaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitrama v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha v'richu leila mincha birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'alma v'imadu. Amen. At this time, we ask those who are observing Shiva or Shaloshim, the first 7 or 30 days after the death of a loved one, if they wish to rise and receive a blessing, to do so at this time, and also those who are at home, if they wish to rise in their home, to please do so. Hamakom yenechem etchem b'toch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you along with those of Zion, of Zion, and of Jerusalem. Now the congregation stands with you, and we continue on page 146, page 28 in the small book with the Baruch Hu. La 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 page 148 or page 30 in the small book. We read together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chachma poteach she'arim uvitvuna meshane itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kiratzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi laila umavdil ben yom uvein laila Adonai tzivaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Page 151, we read together at the top of the page. Page 33 in the small book. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. 152. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated, and we continue on page 154 with the V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chal levavcha u'chol nafshecha u'v'chal meodecha v'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We go to page 157, and we read together at the top of the page, and that is also on page 39 in the smaller book. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, and there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 158 or page 40, the Micha Mocha. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osefele, Nora tehilot osefele. Malchutecha rahuvanecha, Bokeh ayam lifnei Moshe Miriam, Zeheli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch, Adonai imloch, leolam va'en. V'ne'emar kifat Adonai et Yaakov u'galo chazach, miyad chazach mimenu baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Page 160, the Hashkivenu prayer bringing on the evening, keeping us with evening, knowing that in a few hours we'll be laying our heads down to rest and hoping that we rest peacefully and rise up tomorrow for another day, a day of Shabbat, a day of rest. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, ufros olenu sakat shalomecha, v'tachnenu be'etzah tova milfanecha, v'hoshienu lema'an shemecha. Page 161 or page 43 at the top of the page, and we read, "Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael va'al Yerushalayim." Page 162 or page 44, the V'shamru. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, La'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dodotam b'rit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, La'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dodotam b'rit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam, oti leolam, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dodotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, Asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et haaretz, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dodotam b'rit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dodotam b'rit olam. Page 164 or 46 in the smaller book. And we have our most important prayer of any service, the Tefillah prayer, also called the Amidah, because of being that we stand. So we will rise at this time if you are able, and we will continue with the Tefillah prayer. Adonai sifatai tiftach, Ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevii Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Michayei HaKol atah Rav LaHoshia. Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim. So make noflim verofei kolim, umatir asurim, umakayem emunato, lishene afar, micha mocha b'givurot, umido melach, melech memit, umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom yalalucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. And we continue our service on page 177, page 59 in the smaller book. At the top of the page, and we read together, God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. Page 178 or page 60, Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom rahav Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rahav Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol eit uv'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom rahav Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rahav Yisrael amcha Tasim leolam, Tasim leolam, Tasim leolam. Baruch atah Adonai merechet amo Yisrael b'shalom. We pause now for our own moment of silent meditation. Kehilah Ratzoni Mrefi v'hagyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. We continue our service on page 371. Page 371, which is page 253 in the small book for our Misha Berach prayer. And as we've been doing, after we do the first half, we'll then add the names first of our congregation, and then, of course, any other names that you might have to add to that list. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor Abracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We wish a refuah shalema, a speedy recovery to Abracha bat Baruch, Gerald Buckman, Rita Buckman, Miriam bat Yaakov Achaya, Edward Ellis, Ezra Gedda, Dr. Kevin Harris, Stacy Kadish, Bernice Klein, Sharon Luber, Rachel Margolis, Pam Meyer, Shari Miller, Rebecca Pollock, Carol Rosen, Don Rosenblum, Sally Rosenblum, Drazia Simon, Leslie Seligman, Sylvia Smoller, Adrian Sweesey, and Dave Wattel. Anybody else would either like to add another name or name that you would like mentioned as I go around to please add that name? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Of course, I always like to think that we do this prayer also for us, for all of us who are here as well, because we can always use a little prayer, a little goodness, a little thoughtfulness, a little pickup for just what we go through every day. And now that we can begin Shabbat, hopefully it'll give us a time to rest. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And we continue our service on page 376 with our prayer for the country, page 258, for those who are at home looking at the other book. In the middle of the page, and we read together. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen. On page 377 or 259, we will just read the prayer for the state of Israel. O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. And now it's time for all of you to rest. It's time for me to say a couple of words. Let's see, how many pages can I pull out? Oh, not a lot. I never have a lot of pages. Doesn't mean I won't talk for 20 minutes. I just don't have a lot of pages. It's an interesting Torah portion tomorrow. There's a lot of small parts, but each one of those parts can have many different discussions about them. The portion is Pinchas, and really to understand the portion, you have to go to last week's portion at the end of it, because it's there that Pinchas does his deed. You have a man called Zimri, who was part of the tribe of Shimon. Simeonite is what they think they call it in the English. And then you have a Midianite woman named Cosbi. And Zimri takes the Midianite woman, Cosbi, and fools around with her. Now, what I never knew until researching this, I mean, I've read this portion, I can't tell you how many times, but I never knew is what the meaning of Cosby is. And you want to talk about misogynist, but Cosby means, this was the name of the princess. He's a prince in Israel. She's a princess of Midianites. Cosby means big breasts. So you look and say, okay, there's the man, there's the woman with do you know what? And he's, you know, they're off and going. Well, what happens is because of this, because what the Midianites were trying to do was to change the Israelites and make them follow their gods and their beliefs. And so what happens is there's a plague that God sends upon the people, and he wants to destroy all the Israelites. And Pinchas, who in the Torah portion when it starts tomorrow says Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, okay? he goes and gets all of his zealousness up, and he runs into the tent, and he destroys and kills both Zimri and Cosbi. And in the Torah portion tomorrow, his zealousness is rewarded because he changes God. He transforms God into wanting to destroy, into saying, this man saved the Israelites by what he did. This man shall be blessed with a covenant of peace. Okay? Interesting, because at the beginning it talks about that he's the son of Eleazar, the priest, who's the son of Aaron, the high priest. And we all know that Aaron basically was a man of peace. He didn't like confrontation. He always wanted people to settle. He thought up ideas. There's even stories, the reason why he was building the calf was not because he wanted to build the golden calf, but the Midrash tells us it was because he was hoping that Moses would come down during that time and that people would see Moses and have it. So he always was figuring out some way to handle the problem without there being a lot of confrontation. He was a man of peace, which is what Aaron was known by. Well, so apparently was Pinchas. But in this circumstance, that man of peace said, this can't go on, and this is going to destroy our people, so he reacted. What's interesting about being a zealot, so to speak, is that in our prayer book on Yom Kippur, one of the al-chates we get is for being a zealot for bad causes. Okay? That's one of the sins that we fall under. So when you think of being a zealot, you think of somebody, it's in a negative term a lot of times. But really, a zealot per se is, as I looked up a definition, a person who goes overboard in their zeal or enthusiasm for a cause. Now, it could be a religious cause, it could be a political cause, it could be even an example that was given was a person who can only have a certain coffee if it's grown in a certain area and has just certain beans, and they will have no other coffee but that. They're a zealot for that coffee, and they want everybody to know about it, and they really want everybody to just drink that coffee. That's it. And they will listen to nothing else. That's the trouble with a zealot, is they don't listen to others. They just have their way, they have blinders on, and that's the way they are, okay? But you know what? When I thought about it, we are all zealots in our own way, in our own lives. Anybody, and myself included, because I've done this, anybody who's been a first responder is a zealot. Because they're willing to go out and put their lives in danger to help and save others. They're very zealous in what they do. Many of us who have worked are very zealous in what we have done in our careers. Okay? We still come home, we're with our families, we're with our loved ones and everything else, but when we are working, we're very zealous with what we're doing. We want it to be done right. We want it to be done well. We want, whatever it is that we're doing to be successful and good. So you can be a zealot in that respect, which certainly is not bad at all. So zealousness in and of itself is not a bad thing. Depends upon how we use it and what we do with it. The name Pinchas could also be a serpent's mouth, is one of the definitions of the name of Pinchas. Now, when you have a serpent, when the tongue comes out, you get like the tongue and it's 2 points that are there. So you can see that it's very sharp, or it looks like it's very sharp. So a Pinchas with that name was a person who might have a very sharp tongue, is how they define it. But it's also, historically, the serpent itself was a symbol of fertility, a creative life force, rebirth, and for me, the most important, transformation. Because what Pinchas did was transform God from wanting to destroy the people to stopping the plague and saving the people because of what he did. And the other reason why Pinchas is so important to me is because it's my father's name. And so I thought about my dad. Was he zealous? Yes. We owned a candy store. He worked hard. He wanted to be successful. He had to keep going. He had to keep doing. I only knew him till I was 9 because he died at 50. But I remember certain things. There's pictures of me with him and my mother. I don't remember that picture at all. It's a little kid, he's holding me in his arms. But I remember him carrying me one time and having a good time down our hallway in our apartment. And I kept yelling to him, "Dad, stop, Dad, stop. I'm going to be sick. Dad, stop." He was having too good of a time. He didn't stop, right over his head. Okay? That I remember about my dad. Okay? But I also remember when I started Hebrew school, I went to the Reformed Temple, Temple Beth Israel in Jersey City, New Jersey. And at that time, I would take a bus. Okay? 8 years old. Okay? I'd get on the bus. I'd get off on the street where I then had to walk up the hill to where the temple was. When school was over, I'd either have to walk down or get on the boulevard bus, take that to my street, and walk down. That was only for a half a year, because then my mother wanted me to switch to Cheder. So for 4.5 years, I went every day to Cheder. Well, every day when I came home, my father was napping, because he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. My mother would relieve him at around 2. He would come home, he would nap a little bit, and then he would go back so that my mother could come home and prepare dinner, and then my father would come home whatever time he got home. But I would have to go in when I switched to Cheder because there was no bus to take me there. And they didn't have the bus that went around picking up the kids, the little school bus. I had to go in and wake him up. He never complained. He looked at me, he smiled, he said, "I'm getting up," and he'd drive me to Cheder. He was zealous to make sure that I got my Jewish education. People often ask me, "Why did you become a rabbi?" And this is where you can get into the transformation. The meaning of the name Pinchas, the serpent's mouth, the serpent's tongue, what the serpent stands for. Okay? And in the transformation, my response to many people is, one of the reasons I think I became a rabbi was because of my father. Because he died when I was 9, and because I wanted to help others. I wanted to be there to give comfort. I wanted to be there to help people get through the situation. I wanted to be there for young people, for people who were 9 and 8 and 10 and 11, and be there for them to help them, to say, "I understand what you're going through because I went through it myself." Okay? So when people ask me, "Why did you choose to become a rabbi?" That's one of the things I think that made me make that decision to become a rabbi. I was always the most religious one of my friends. when we go temple hopping at the holidays and stuff, I went inside and prayed. They couldn't understand that. They all hung outside. They went in for 2 minutes, they said, whoop, enough, and out they went. Marty would go in. Marty would come out in a half hour. They were still there. I'd sit and stand and schmooze, and then I'd say, I'm going back in. And they'd look at me like I was nuts. Why are you going back in? I said, because I enjoy it. I enjoy the responsive readings. I enjoy the music. I enjoy the cantor. I enjoy the choir, whatever it is. I enjoyed it, okay? But I think part of that enjoyment and everything else came from both my mother and for the short time that I knew my father. My son is also Pinchas. So I've got it twice. And he too is a person who sometimes he has a sharp tongue, like Pinchas is described, but he also is a life force. He also transforms. He worked for about 17 years for ASU, and now he's the Chief Operating Officer of the Central Arizona Shelter Services. He's working to provide places to take the homeless off the streets and give them a place to be. He is trying to transform lives. So what I look at and what I see is that when we as people look back, many of you have Hebrew names, men and women. Look back. See what those names mean, if there's a meaning to the name who you were named for, or the name of your father and what the meaning was. And see if you can see if you can get something out of that gives you a great feeling on the inside, but also lends and tends itself to who you are, where you've been, what you've done. And it was amazing when I looked at this and saw what Pinchas meant and read about what the serpent usually has and signifies and symbols. It not only was my father for the short time I knew him, but it was also the way I feel, and also coming down to the next generation. And just take a look at that. Just see if you can find something in your own backgrounds and see how you've been zealous in your life. Okay? I think all of us who have been parents for our children would do anything. Okay? We'd stand in front of the bus for our kids. We'd push them out of the way, and we'd take the brunt of it. How many times do we hear or have we heard when a young person dies, why didn't God take me instead of them? We are zealous when it comes to our families, our loved ones, our children. And so on this Shabbat, as we're studying Pinchas, go and look at your own histories and see what you can find and what you can make, and hopefully you'll find happiness and joy and the covenant, as Pinchas got, the covenant of shalom, the covenant of God's most precious gift, the gift of peace. Shabbat shalom. And I'm going to go through announcements that we have heard in the past, but in case you missed it, you're going to hear it again. 2023-2024 membership letters are in the mail. Please let Robin know if you haven't received your letter. There's Robin over there. Okay, so let her know if you haven't received your letter. Please see the annual event calendar included in the letter and mark your calendars for some great events throughout the year. High Holy Days information will be available in the next 2 weeks. Check the website and weekly e-newsletter for updates. The next grief support group will meet on January 11th at 5:30 in the sanctuary. July 11th, what did I say? What month did I carry out on? January. Well, it might meet January 11th too, who knows? Hey, but now it's meeting July 11th. Friday dinner group has been suspended for the summer. Will resume on Friday, September 9th. And please see Elaine Glazer if you have any questions. We need your special and favorite recipes for our CBI Table Cookbook project. Please see this week's newsletter or Janie Kuznitsky, who's here with us this evening, and Gail Gratis. When she's here, she was here last week, she's not here this week, for details on how to get your favorite recipes into our cookbook. And if you have a recipe that you'd like to leave and you come in, there's some measuring cups and mixing bowls that are out on the table. Many people come in and they wonder, what is that there for? That's to remind you to bring the recipes for the cookbook. And there's a little thing that's there, okay, just a little box, and you can just drop your recipes if you don't want to talk to either one of those two ladies. Just drop your recipe in and have a good time, and know that it's going to get published, and hopefully everybody will want to make it and enjoy it. If you are interested in being a Shabbat greeter, please reach out to Andrew Goldschmidt, who's the chair of our greeter committee, and sign up and get on the schedule. If you're new to CBI, whether here or watching on whatever you might be watching us on, and would like more information, if you're here, we'd love to meet you in the Rotunda, and we look forward to welcoming you to CBI. And if you're traveling this summer, as most of us probably might be doing, either now, later, whatever, let's all have safe and happy travels. And if there was somebody else doing this announcement right now, they'd say, Shabbat Shalom. Okay, we're going to continue then with concluding our service. First with the Aleinu on page 586. And if you wish to rise or able to please do so at this time. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol latet gedula leotze bereshit shelo asanu kigaye adatzot velo samanu kimishmechon hadama shelo sam chelkenu kahem vegor aleinu kechol amonam vanachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. And just one more announcement that I left out. Torah study tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, in the Bendelin Conference Room, followed by services at 10:15. My other senior colleague, age-wise, will be here tomorrow doing Torah study and services, and that's Rabbi Levy, Charlie Levy. So he will be doing that tomorrow. Next week, Cantor will be here doing services Friday and Saturday. The following week after that, you got me for everything. I'll be here Friday and Saturday. Okay? So, and after that, somebody else will be back. I don't know who's coming, but somebody's coming. Probably Rabbi Kahn will be back at that time. We continue now on page 598 with the Kaddish prayer. It is with deepest sympathies that we note the passing of the following people who were recently laid to their eternal rest: Joyce Koslow, mother of Michael Koslow; Wendy Lipsutz, husband of Leonard Lipsutz; mother of Jay Walker, sister of Karen Balaban; Sheldon Plotnick, husband of Phyllis Lowenstein, father of Nancy Koplow; Lawrence Epstein, husband of Betty Mae Epstein, father of Howard Epstein and Ronnie Zeman; Selma Friedman, mother of Ivy Siegel, grandmother of Jessica Langbaum. Is there anyone who has any other names now, if they would like to add? Yes, sir.
Rabbi, I say Kaddish for Sergeant Jerome Shapiro, 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment. He died in battle on July 5th, 1944, and is buried at the Normandy American Cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anyone else have any name? Okay. Anyone else? We include those names, along with those members of the congregation, as well as the 6 million who died in the Holocaust, the 1.5 million children who had no one to say Kaddish for them, as well as the soldiers and civilians of the state of Israel who had died for that country, for our country in Israel. We continue together with the Kaddish prayer. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'alagav v'zman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mivarach li'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei Kedoshah b'richu, le'ela mincha birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'miran v'yalma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. And I made a terrible mistake. I'm going to sort of fix it now and do it afterwards. I forgot to mention the people whose yurtzites were this week, so I'm going to do that now. Harold Alpert, Edward Berger, Harry L. Burl, Isidore Bernstein, Sadie Bernstein, Morris Blivis, Tufik L. Agazer, Edward Fagan, Jack Flashberg, Edith Goldberg, Samuel Goldstein, Tilly Goodharts, Jeffrey Gottlieb, Rowena Hahn, Sylvia Harwin, Harry Kaplan, and Samuel Kaplan, Raleigh Karen, Edith Gordon Klein, Louise Cohn, Jeanette Lanton, Bernard Leibovitz, Donald Lerner, Rona Levenstein, Paul M. Levin, Jean Mishkin, Nikki Morris, Nancy Myers, Samuel D. Nierenberg, Elda Perry, Boris Robbins, Fanny Rosenfeld, Manny Rosenthal, Fred Roth Bloom, Gloria Savakul, June Schwartz, Elizabeth Shapiro, Ruth Makoff Shapiro, Marie Schultz, Samuel M. Stein, David Taxman, and Bess Waldinger. Those family members, if you stood for Kaddish either here or at home, please accept my apologies, but I'm glad I remembered so those names could be mentioned. Interestingly enough, just one little side note before we do Oseh Shalom and conclude our service and go out for the lighting of the Shabbat candles and our Kiddush. A friend of mine, Rabbi Simcha Bob, Stephen Bob, had written me yesterday and saw that I was doing services. He's probably in Illinois, which is where his congregation was and where he lives. He's retired now. He asked me, it's his grandfather's yurtzeit, and if we mention names, to mention his name. And I mentioned that name, Samuel Kaplan, for him this evening. What's interesting was every student, all the 39 kids who were in the class when we started out 50 years ago, or 51 years ago now, going to rabbinic school, he was Simcha. Well, he writes and he tells me his grandfather's name was Simcha, and he calls him the original Simcha. So here I was talking about names and things and everything else, and he writes this, tells me and says, I called him the original Simcha, okay? And it was just, how coincidental that would be and happen just when I'm doing services, and and I'm talking about that, and he writes to tell me that. So put your arm around people next to you if you wish. Oseh Shalom bimromav uyaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav uyaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav uyaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shabbat Shalom.